Hey guys, Rigid Blade Bingo here, and today I want to talk about PlayStation. More specifically, I want to talk about some of the information that came out regarding the next generation of PlayStation. And all of this comes from Sony's presentation during their annual Investor Relations Day, which is kind of, from what I understand, and this is not my area of expertise, which is finance and investments and all that stuff. That's not my area of expertise, but from what I understand, it's basically like an investor's call that you see from a lot of the other publicly traded third-party studios out there, like how EA and Ubisoft and Activision, they all have their own investors call every fiscal quarter or fiscal year or what have you. But this is normally a time when a lot of very interesting information comes out from these companies, and that was definitely the case with this presentation by Sony during Investor Relations 2019. I've cherry-picked some of the stuff from all of the slideshows, and this isn't stuff that's been leaked to the public. You can find this readily available with just simple Google. All you gotta do is just type in Sony IR Day 2019, and you can find and look through this slideshow to your heart's content. But today I'm gonna go through and cherry pick some of the stuff that I find interesting, because quite frankly, I'm not gonna go present Sony music and Sony movies, and I don't care about any of that. But what I do care about is the Sony Interactive Entertainment side of things, who of course are in charge of the PlayStation brand. And this is where we're going to get all the nice, interesting information that popped up about the next generation PlayStation, which is pretty much most likely going to be called PlayStation 5, unless they were to do something dumb and call it, I don't know, PlayStation 1 or something. I don't know. PlayStation can be dumb sometimes, but let's take a look at this together, shall we? So the first slide that I've cherry-picked to talk about is one of the ones that I think has the most interesting / worrying implications, if my own belief in things are only going to get worse comes to pass, which I think has been true for a while now. And what we're seeing is the game industry is indeed getting worse, and a lot of scummy business practices are starting to infect other studios like Bethesda recently, within the last couple months. And I've always been under the belief that Sony will eventually be they'll start smoking along with the big kids, and right now, unfortunately, I think we're starting to see the beginning of that, with them talking about how they are going to start improving competence in the game as a service revenue. And it says, as an example, the highest paying user spend of any sports title on the US store is MLB The Show 19. Now, keep in mind, this is only for the US store. And it specifically says US store. It doesn't say through worldwide, so I assume FIFA is probably the stuff that still makes the most money. FIFA and Fortnite and all these other games that make an obscene amount of money with recurrent user spending, that focus on microtransactions, that focus on adding in new cosmetic stuff to buy. And if y'all thought PlayStation was free of hawking their games with microtransactions, they're not. They've added microtransactions to their games in the past before. They've added, of course, MLB The Show is like the big one, which every year it comes out, it's got to have those fucking stubs or credits or whatever the hell you want to call them. They've also got microtransactions in Uncharted 4 in the multiplayer. They're more than likely going to put microtransactions into the multiplayer of The Last of Us Part 2. And I have a sneaking suspicion that the future is going to have more microtransactions in them. Maybe not for their single player stuff. Hopefully not. But I have a feeling they're going to start dipping their toe more into the live service elements of games. And this slide pretty much confirms my fear that they're going to start at least experimenting with it. And I think that upcoming Predator game that they announced that might be a live service is going to be kind of like dipping their toe a little bit more into it. I've heard for a long time as well that Guerrilla Games is working on a secret project that's heavily rumored to be a multiplayer focused Killzone game that I've heard is basically going to be almost like Rainbow Six Siege, which, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Killzone. In fact, I thought the last one was terrible, but I like Siege. I think it's okay. I just hope they don't go overboard with monetization like Ubisoft does. And I'm pretty sure the next generation is going to be home to a lot more live service stuff. Because Sony is one of the last ones that have really held off on fully immersing themselves into the live service trend. They kind of have one foot on the train a little bit. They're not quite riding on the train and hooping and hollering like Ubisoft and EA and Activision are with almost all their games, but they're starting to get there where they keep talking about how they want to improve their multiplayer games and how they want to focus more on live services, and that to me is worrying, and I hope it's gonna be the case. I hope it's not, but I'm pretty sure, like I said, is going to be the case eventually for Sony, because Sony sees all the money that's coming out of this live service boon, and they want more. They are a business after all. They may be home to some of my favorite franchises of all time, and I may have great nostalgic, well, actually, both current and past fondness for them, but they are still a business after all, and they want to make more money at the end of the day. And yeah, they're seeing how it's working out for the likes of Epic and Ubisoft. They're seeing record high sales, record high recurrent user spending, and I think they're gonna start wanting that too, which, oh boy. Now, another area of this presentation that's interesting is in its talk about the PlayStation 5 era, besides the software, where we already got a glimpse of this just randomly one morning on I think it was a Tuesday. I just woke up and there it was, just some information about the PlayStation 5 that it didn't come from anonymous sources. It didn't come from Kotaku. It didn't come from leak. It came from The Wired, who heard about it from Sony themselves, where they literally said what to expect from Sony's next-gen PlayStation, and they went into detail about stuff they were doing for the next generation of consoles, which is just, it was just bizarre. Now, I heard the reason they did this is because dev kits were starting to go out, and the information was going to start leaking out to the public eventually. So Sony pretty much jumped ahead of the leaks and just spilled the beans themselves, where they said, here's what's going to be in the PlayStation 5. Where it was Mark Cerny, who is once again the lead architect of this console, like he was with the PlayStation 4. And he's coming out and telling us that, oh, hey, we're going to be supporting 8K resolution, we're going to be supporting ray tracing, we're going to be supporting a solid state drive, we're going to be supporting backwards compatibility with the PlayStation 4 games, and among other things. And he also talked about much shorter load times, talked about how more powerful this is going to be, and he also talked about how streaming is going to play a pretty important role in the future of PlayStation. Now, we also got more information from this presentation. Not a significant amount, but we got some specific stuff. Like, there was this demo that leaked earlier this week from this conference that showed, hey, on the PlayStation 4 Pro, SpiderMan looks and runs like this. And then on our current under development model of the PlayStation 5, Spider-Man looks and runs like this, and it was like this super high speed thing where the game was able to render the city of New York way faster and way more smoothly than it could on the PlayStation 4 Pro. And I've heard it was able to load the game in at less than a second, and compared to the PlayStation 4 Pro, which loaded in about 8 seconds. Which, 8 seconds is already kind of good, but under a second loading something like Spider-Man? Now keep in mind, this is from a PlayStation 4 game. We still have no idea how long the load times are going to be for a PlayStation 5 game. That's going to be getting a lot more pretty graphics, a lot more ray tracing, a lot more of that 8K resolution in there. So we don't know how ultra high speed the load times are going to be for a PlayStation 5 game yet. But considering you can load a nice looking PS4 game like Spider-Man in under a second on this console, that's pretty good. That's pretty impressive. What's really interesting too is they talked about what we have said so far, where it's an all new CPU and GPU, solid state drive, backwards compatibility, ray tracing, 8K, disk support, 3D audio. Now the things they haven't talked about it for are dates, of course, price, of course, games, user experience, and the country rollout. Now, the most obvious speculation from all of this is that it's going to be coming fall 2020. That's what everybody is basically saying. Anyone that has any kind of insider knowledge is saying it's going to be fall 2020. It's always going to be fall, like it is with these big consoles. Now, I'm a little disappointed by this because I was honestly hoping that we would get it by spring. Because I would have liked to have seen Sony get ahead of the competition and release it during the spring and have it to where all 2020 they can focus on PlayStation. They can be like, hey, 2020 is the year of PlayStation 5. Let's get all these kick-ass games out and rolling. But I guess that's not happening. They're going to go for the obvious, where they're going to go head-to-head against Microsoft's new console. Unless Microsoft decides to do what I had hoped Sony would do and release their next Xbox in spring 2020. It's a possibility, but it looks like it's going to be the classic head-to-head for the two companies. Price, I would be shocked if this thing was under $500. I think $500 is the bare minimum of what we can expect from this. Games, I've heard, like I've said, I've heard about the Killzone game that is basically a live service like Rainbow Six Siege. I've heard that we're going to be getting a new Uncharted from the Sony San Diego team, who are the guys behind MLB The Show. God of War 2 is obviously coming out. They're going to be doing another Spider-Man. They're going to be doing another Horizon Zero Dawn. That much is obvious. I'd actually be pretty excited if Horizon Zero Dawn 2 was a launch title for the PlayStation 5. I think that would be a huge get for Sony if they were to do that. I think they would get a lot of copies like day one. And they already would get a lot of copies, but I mean a lot of copies if they did Horizon Zero Dawn 2 as a launch title for the PlayStation 5. I think that would be the smart thing to do. If they can get it ready in time, of course. Moving on, they also talked about how PlayStation, it's like the critical roles are going to be, they'll remain the engine of engagement, profitability of the next 3 years. So the PS4 is going to be around for a while. It's still going to be around for the next 3 years, like the PS3 was around for a while, even after the PlayStation 4 came out. They'll provide the fertile. I don't know why, just that word makes me smile. The fertile early adopter gamer-based critical for, it's just a bunch of gobbledygook. Outstanding roster of AAA games still to come. Exclusive AAA games still to come. Now, this basically confirms something that has kind of been a rumor for a while, that the next big PlayStation exclusives are going to jump ship from PS4 to PS5. I've always said that's not going to be the case because there's no way in hell that Sony is willing to give up that goodwill and that revenue stream from releasing it cross-gen. It's good. They're going to be cross-gen. Games like Ghost of Tsushima, it's going to be cross-gen. Last of Us Part 2 is going to be cross-gen. Death Stranding is going to be cross-gen. I'm pretty sure at least one of those three is going to be cross-gen, if not all three of them. And I'm not talking about just, backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 4. No, I'm talking about, I'm talking about extra pretty graphics and extra features for the PlayStation 5 from these games. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. Prove me wrong, PlayStation, but you know what? That makes the most logical sense to me to do that. Now, the next thing is player choice, or gamer choice as they talk about it on this, where they talk about how before it was the CD and the DVDs you'd use on the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2, then it was Blu-ray discs plus downloads for the PS3 and the PS4. Now in the next gen, they're going to have Blu-ray, digital downloads, and streaming. And streaming is going to be this big focus that Sony is going to have in the future, which, if you know me, I've always been very skeptical about streaming because the internet is kind of terrible, at least out here in America. The infrastructure is shit. It's garbage compared to a lot of other places in the world. And yet, companies are hellbound on killing the easiest way to play video games, which is a disc. And they're trying to make it more appealing to digitally download games. Now they're going to start to make it more appealing, or try to make it more appealing to stream, which is not going to happen for a lot of people because a lot of people don't have the nice internet readily available to stream for the next generation of games, especially games that are going to have these high-end graphics and going to look amazing and 8K resolution with ray tracing. Whoa, ray tracing! And they're not going to have the tech for it in their own house. It's the same shit that I said about the Google Stadia, or whatever the fuck it was called. How they were talking about how, Doom, it can run at 60 frames, it can run at 120, look, great. But a lot of people don't have good internet for that. So how are you going to provide that off their shitty ass potato internet? You can't, so it's limiting your audience, which thankfully they're not completely abandoning discs, they're not abandoning digital stuff. I hope to God they don't start adding DRM to their console with the discs. I hope to God they don't, like they did with the Xbox One initially. Better not do that shit, Sony. Hope you learn from your competition. So, obviously, according to Sony, the role of streaming is going to be big. They've got PlayStation Now, which is, I guess, a thing for them. And they're going to start improving their PlayStation community, where they're going to talk about how they're going to have shared PlayStation experiences that can be seamlessly enjoyed independent of time and place, with or without a console. It's just a bunch of, again, it's a bunch of corporate jargon, but you know, this is where the future is headed, sadly, and I don't like it. I know I'm that old man that's like, no, I want my disc, but I want my disc. And, you know, I will admit, I'm a little bit more on board with the idea of digitally downloading games than I was a couple years ago, but that's because I just don't want to deal with GameStop. But in most cases, like a lot of times, I still like my discs. I like having a nice collection of games in my cabinet. It looks nice. But I don't like streaming games. I just don't. I don't have the internet for it. And I don't want to have to deal with the potential problems that could come from something that's not directly downloaded to my hard drive or my solid state drive. It's just not appealing to me. And I know they're serious about this because they've also been talking about how they're partnering with Microsoft, where they're going to have this strategic partnership where they collaborate to try to find new cloud-based solutions for gaming and AI, which caught people really off guard. And that's just strange, where now Sony and Microsoft are kind of hopping into bed. They're like, all right, well, let's start doing shit for the next gen, boys. Start doing it. And I guess that's gonna happen now, where they're hopping into bed with Microsoft so we can start improving the technology for the streaming. Yay. So that to me was the most interesting stuff from Sony's Investor Relations Day. some of it interesting, some of it worrying, but all of it fascinating. And this is an exciting time. Worrying, but exciting, because we are getting to that point where the next generation is coming up, and E3 is right around the corner, or I'm pretty sure Xbox is going to start revealing their plans. It's been long rumored that they're going to reveal their plans for the next gen at E3 this year, and they're going to talk about the future, and they're going to show off some of the new games, probably along the lines of the next Fable or the next Halo or whatever. And Sony's already been talking about it this year, way earlier than I expected, so it's coming. And they're starting to hit their stride with these PlayStation State of Play things, so one of these State of Plays might pop up one of these days, and it's could be talking about the next generation of Sony hardware with the PlayStation. Who knows? Weirder things have happened. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you'd like to see, subscribe. Let me know what you think about Sony's little tidbits from the investor relations stuff. What are your expectations, thoughts, and fears for the next gen? Let me know. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.